All right.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Photograph and The Lunchbox.
Which are both directed by Ritesh Batra, which I'm sure is not the correct way to pronounce it. That's all I got for you.
I definitely give them both, like, a good review. I like them. I think people who like those kind of movies should see them. They give a really interesting glimpse into Mumbai at the same time as giving these kind of intimate, comedic, lightly comedic romance stories.
The Lunchbox is the lighter of the two. It's the more comedic of the two. Mm-hmm. Photograph has a strong sense of melancholy, which makes it slightly less light, though.
I'm not sure I entirely agree. Yeah. I think there's some real heaviness to Lunchbox as well.
Yeah, the heaviness there is heaviness into it, but something about, maybe it's just that song, the score in Photograph, that they use, which makes it all feel melancholy, even though it isn't always. I don't know. But they're both very good.
Yeah, and they both delve into societal issues in Mumbai, and with being a woman, and with being a man.
Yeah.
So they're not just frivolous.
They're definitely two-person romantic comedies. They're not about just the man or just the woman.
Right.
They're both about both.
Yeah, but it's interesting, because I always, one of the things I've heard is that you always need a third party, I guess. You always need not a threesome, that sounds... a love triangle. There we go.
Oh, that sounds better.
I was thinking of the three corners, and I came up with threesome instead of a love triangle. And
those are potentially very different things.
And I guess both of them have that lightly in the story, but they're not like those goofy movies, which we're going to go into more, the goofy romantic comedies of my childhood.
Yes.
Which we will go more into.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I really I don't like rom-coms at all. I just don't like them. I don't like anything that's comedy, really, like where comedy is like the main part of the genre. There are exceptions.
Don't like broad comedy.
I don't like broad comedy. Booksmart was ostensibly a broad comedy film. Loved Booksmart.
You like Superbad.
I like Superbad. The Hangover, stuff keeps coming up for The Hangover. I haven't seen it in years, so it may be worse than I think it is, but I like The Hangover.
Did you like Sunny with a Chance of Meatballs?
Yes.
Cloudy with a Chance of...
Yes,
Cloudy.
Cloudy.
One of those things.
It's cloudy, not sunny, but I like it. Yeah, I like that, though I don't... It has broad... That's like a coming-of-age story, though. It's not exact... I mean, it's
so it's Booksmart.
Yes, but I feel like the comedy in Booksmart is a heavier piece, but this is not the point of this.
Right.
Anyways, so I don't like rom-coms, and I really liked both of these movies.
Okay, so let's go into spoiler territory.
Yeah.
I mean...
Spoilers. 1, 2, 3, feel the spoil.
Well, and the thing I want to go into is that, I've heard on, like, the very few movie podcasts and websites I'm paying attention to that, we haven't had rom-coms lately. And I have cared in as much as it'd be nice to have something that wasn't a Marvel movie. But I don't like rom-coms either, because all the rom-coms when I was, like, growing up were, like, Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson, Sandra Bullock, Hugh Grant. They always seemed to hate each other, and then they kind of fell in love, and then then the truth would come out about their contrived circumstances that had led to them being together in the first place. And then they'd, fall back in love the end. Like, it was pretty rote.
Yeah.
And often they were stupid. The characters were made stupid. They would just kind of get by on the charm of the actors, which those people all have charm.
They all felt like they were improv movies. Mm-hmm. Like, I've only seen, like, one of the ones I can even think of, and I haven't even seen all of it. Like, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think I've seen scenes out of that movie. Yeah. That might even be one of the better ones for all I know, but...
There's a couple romantic... Like, I like Music and Lyrics, which was Drew Barrymore and Hugh Grant, and it's just silly and light. I liked Return to Me, which is Minnie Driver and David Duchovny, and I liked... I forget what it was called. It's a weird one with Vincent D'Onofrio and Marissa Tomei. I can't remember the title of it, but
excellent.
It's very weird.
Okay. I'm even trying to think of like because like when I was growing up, the rom-coms by the time I was in my teenage years, which would have been the mid 2000s, like there weren't that many rom-coms really. Mm-hmm. Rom-coms were becoming the purview of like right now they're the purview of Netflix, and that's like what the last 10 plus years have been. And like I remember rom-coms, and they were like starring Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler and like what's his name, Vince Vaughn, and like I remember all these comedy guys. Like they were comedy guys. Yeah. They suddenly had all these comedy guys doing rom-coms. Yeah. Whereas I think before that you had like the teen heartthrob doing the Tom Cruise type doing the rom-com, and I felt like they started doing it where they made them even heavier comedy. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't.
Happy Accidents.
Excellent.
There's time travel in it. It's very weird.
Excellent. So I don't even remember these movies because I did not watch them.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. So Lunchbox is very embedded in Mumbai.
And we haven't even talked about what they're about yet.
Really interesting setup that is simply in Mumbai, there's some kind of insane system whereby pre-made lunches get to work to people in offices.
Yeah, there's essentially like a group of like deliverers and like all the infrastructure to support it to get it from the home or restaurant to the person at their work.
Right, and at one point towards the end of the movie, the one of the guys in charge of delivery is saying Harvard studied us and we're perfect. And like that's real. Like some university or some group did study their system. Yeah. And the setup is the wrong lunch. This woman's trying to rekindle her romance with her husband with her cooking, and it goes to the wrong person. Yes. And it's interesting because one of the things I really hate about rom-coms is these contrived setups. Like 10 Things I Hate About You. Never saw it, but I know, not 10 Things I Hate About You.
How to Lose a Guy.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Yes, I got that mixed up earlier. Who cares? Whatever. Moving on.
She's writing a magazine article about getting rid of a guy, and he's writing a magazine article about getting rid of a woman, or something like that. And it's just like ridiculous. But somehow, this setup that is kind of a contrivance where it's just the lunchbox going to the wrong place. It's done so subtly and done so like the first few notes that they pass back and forth as they realize what's going on almost right away. So you're not stuck watching this like
that would have been awkward humor, and I'm not a fan of awkward humor.
Yeah, you're not stuck watching that. And the first few notes they exchange are like very realistic. Like she's like, this is for my husband. Mm-hmm. I hope you enjoyed it. And he's like, well, it was too salty.
Today it was too salty.
Yeah. We've got cat noise in the background. And then it just blossoms into this just conversation, and it brings in all these real issues instead of like frivolous nonsense. It's about he's a widower and he misses his wife, and she's realized that her husband is having an affair.
And of course you can do it either way. You can do a frivolous rom-com. That's totally fine and make it fun.
I'm not going to like it though.
No, but if the writing were as clever in a frivolous rom-com as it is in this movie, you actually might like it.
Well, and that's where I think about like the rom-coms of like the 30s and the 40s when they did more cutting less cutting, and it was more fast dialogue. Yeah, the writing was often really good with those. Yeah. And there were some good rom-coms of the 90s and 80s and all that. I just don't know them as well. Like everybody liked Four Weddings and a Funeral, and it just didn't work for me.
I've never seen it.
But I mean, I can't say that I remember the writing being bad or anything like that. So then we see the preview for Photograph. And it is one of my least favorite possible setups. They do it in romance novels all the time.
Mind you, she saw this Lunchbox years ago.
Right.
And then we had both seen the preview for Photograph, and I was not interested.
Well, and that's what I want to say, because the setup is the fake fiancé setup.
Right.
It's usually embarrassing and uncomfortable, because at its heart is someone lying to his family or her family that love them very much.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of upsetting if you think about it. Like, Theo, if you were ever to lie to me about being engaged to someone and, like, we did all this stuff surrounding it only for you to say, just kidding, like, I would be really pissed. Like, that's not funny. That's just upsetting. And then you saw it, and you were like, no way. Like, I have no interest in this.
No, because it has that setup. So that not only is that setup like everything you just described. So, as far as awkward humans...
You are an awkward human.
I am. As far as awkward humor goes, like, where somebody doesn't know something that's happened,
right.
And so it's everybody knows but the one guy, this is how I watch those movies.
You don't like it when people are embarrassed, and when you have situations where...
the mom doesn't know, or that they're not dating, that they're lying to the mom. Like, that's totally awkward and cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Because it's not like the kind of secrets that tear up each other families apart in, like, dark dramas. It's like the kind of secrets that, like, make you embarrassed and upset.
Yes. Yes. It's almost like a prank. And I hate pranks.
I
hate pranks. If anybody pranks me, like, I'm not even kidding, I won't talk to them.
Yeah, I'm really, like...
I have friends who would prank people. Like, I have known people who would do that, and I've talked to them about it, and I've been like, yeah, if people pranked me, I just wouldn't talk to them ever again. And they're like,
so
really?
Are we
like,
saying,
yes.
Then, that these are the romantic comedies for people with no sense of humor?
We might be.
Anyway, so going back to but so, I see the preview, and I say there's nothing about this that I want to see, except that I really like this director's last film.
Well, his first film, because he's done two in between.
He has done. His first film, the other film of his that I've seen.
The Lunchbox, which you already described.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I hate this shit. Like,
yeah.
I don't care.
I was basically like, no, that's literally what I said. I was like, I don't, no interest.
I was like, well, maybe I'll see it without you. I've seen movies without you. It's fine.
Yes, it happens.
But then I got you to watch The Lunchbox.
Did we watch it before or after? We watched it before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's easier to, when you're at home, of course you're more likely to watch something when you're at home and you have a nice big TV and you've got streaming.
Well, and you didn't even know what The Lunchbox was about.
You
went into that
clue.
One cold turkey.
Yeah, I knew that it was, I was guessing it must be a similar flavor to Photograph, but even that could be wrong.
Yeah.
I turned out to be right about that, but that's
I didn't know either, but the movies are so restrained.
Yeah.
That I like them because I'm a restrained human being myself. So
sometimes, until you get upset about like a movie or something.
Well, and then I just wake up angry.
And then you call me, yeah, and then you start yelling at me. Like, I don't bring that movie up because all you do is you start yelling, and we don't even have conversations. You're just angry about it.
It's hard. It's
Move
very
on.
hard.
Move on.
But so it's interesting because he takes this stupid romantic comedy setup and turns it into this slow, meditative story about class differences and...
Well, and so I liked The Lunchbox. That's the thing. When I got shown The Lunchbox, I was like, this is just a great movie. This is just really good. It's a really subtle... And one of the great...
whole thing about women being stuck in these,
Yeah, and it's very empathetic and very caring towards her viewpoint and how she feels about it. Like, he doesn't respond, he doesn't show up to meet her.
Because he feels old.
Because he feels old and like she should be with somebody her own age. And usually I would be really put off by the age difference because she's got to be in her 30s and he's in his 50s. So there's something like 20 years between them. Usually I find that icky. It just icks me out. But I'm like her. I feel like she does, where I'm like, oh, he didn't show up. That's super messed up. And so she sends him an empty lunchbox. And it's just how clever the writing is there. And also in the whole movie, they are never... It is a rom-com where they are never in the same scene.
Which is another thing
not once in the whole movie. And that's fucking brilliant.
I hate epistolary stories. And I like the lunchbox. So that's why I'll see Photograph, even though I hate the setup. The thing is that they both grow as people.
Yes.
I think it's really interesting in the Lunchbox.
In both movies.
Let's finish up the Lunchbox. We've been going back and forth a little bit. Let's finish up the Lunchbox. I find it really interesting that she's got this upstairs neighbor who's just stuck taking care of her comatose husband and doing everything she can to keep him alive.
Yeah.
And then she has her own mother who is kind of stuck with her father, who there seems to be some friction there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you have the one conversation with the mother where she's basically like... talks about being stuck with him, like, just is basically telling her daughter that she...
Well, because the father has just died.
Right.
And so she's, like, being honest for once. The
like,
mother,
I am relieved.
I am relieved that he is dead.
And then she ends up listening to the upstairs neighbor who just is so cheerful about it.
Yes, our lead.
Yeah, no, the upstairs neighbor is so cheerful about it. Like,
oh, right, yeah. No, she's
like, he's doing well today, he's just staring up at the ceiling fan and da-da-da. And there's something in that moment even where it's like, this woman is just stuck caring for her comatose husband, and it's just...
Well, to me, it's the idea that in either of their lives, because they bring the ceiling fan in for the lead the male lead as well.
Yeah.
And the most interesting thing in either of their lives might be the ceiling fan. Like, that is the thing that has the most movement almost.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is, in neither case do the women say, don't be stuck the way I am. In fact, one of them's like, I love being stuck. It's, I'm making sure that ceiling fan keeps going so that he never loses his reason to lay there staring up at it. But still, she's like, oh, I have to get out of here.
Yes.
Like, I can't do this.
Well, and I even like that, like, at the beginning... Our male lead is like, well, maybe you need to have another kid. Kids help marriages, which is an old school ideal, and maybe it's still modern in India. Don't know.
He's in his 50s.
Yeah, who knows? Whatever. And so, but then she kind of goes off that for a second and is like, no, wait, that's not right. And then there's a story about a woman who commits suicide with her daughter, and we're worried as an audience that that's what our female lead is going to do. And there's even like a dream scene or something where she sort of thinks about it, and I just like that. I like. It's terrifying that that's how she feels like she has to get out of the situation, and it's so wonderful at the end when you realize that she's not going to do that. She's just going to get out of the situation. She's going to leave him.
Yeah.
Which is like
leave her husband.
And it's like yes.
Well, and that's why I think to talk about both briefly. Both of them end without you seeing the couples get together.
Yes.
And
again, in the Lunchbox, not one scene together.
And I'm enough of a romantic to think that they do both get together.
Right.
But it's almost besides the point, because in both movies, each person has been enriched by having the other person in their life. And it has made them a stronger person, more capable of seeking out what they want. And that's really the point.
Yeah.
And we can hope that they get together afterwards. But really, we're just glad she's getting out of a bad situation, and he's gonna, has a new lease on life in the Lunchbox.
Yes.
So then in Photograph, let's go over to Photograph.
Moving to the more recent one that is probably not in theaters anymore, but just came out, Photograph. Huh?
Yeah, it's still playing at like late at night in LA. But anyway, she's from a middle-class Hindu family. He's poor Muslim from the village. There is a lot of comedy and his grandmother showing up.
Yes. And
so on. But it's never humiliating or embarrassing for anyone. There's comedy to it, but eventually it feels like kind of everyone's in on the joke.
Yeah.
There's motivation given for her because it is an unlikely setup, but they do kind of set up this motivation that she really liked acting.
Yeah.
So maybe this is why the female love interest agrees to do this ridiculous thing, because she gets to kind of get out of her shell a little bit.
Well, they have the most sort of unassuming meet cute, because like he takes photos at the new
Gate to India.
Gate of India or something, which I don't even know what it is, but is some sort of landmark in Mumbai, I guess. And so he takes her photo because he's pushy, and she's like sure, and she's a little demure as a character. And then she sort of wanders off without paying him because her family's wandered off or something like that. Yeah. And it's a meet cute, and there's just nothing there. It's just a random thing that happens, and it's kind of like amusing. And then later, when there's a funny scene where everybody's like, "Oh, I heard your grandma isn't eating." And he's like, "What?" And then he moves on, and then the next person is like, "I heard your grandma isn't eating." Somebody drives up and is like, "I heard your grandma isn't eating." Which is
like that. You'd see that in any rom-com. Like, right. That's a typical rom-com kind of or just comedic.
Yeah. Well, and he orders some kind of food, and I forget what it's called, and that food is a setup for a later conversation he has with the female lead in the movie, and it's just great. It's great that they're even setting that up in that scene.
But then it's just very slow.
Why are you licking my pants?
Something good on them.
Probably drop some fish on them or something.
Possibly. But then it's very slow, which is most of the complaints I've heard about this movie, is that it's very slow.
It's very slow.
Loved every minute of it.
This is the kind of slow that I like, where it's like there is basically always something to think about when it's being slow. It is a little more repetitive maybe than the Lunchbox, and that score does repeat an awful lot.
They just keep meeting up first to kind of, keep his grandma company. He keeps being like, thank you for this. We can make up an excuse, but she keeps showing up anyway, kind of.
Yeah.
And then one day it's like his grandma's not going to be there, and she still shows up.
Yeah.
And they go to see a movie together.
Yeah.
And they just keep, and it's like the most understated relationship ever, where it's like they kind of are in a relationship and they're just not talking about it.
Well, and a part of what keeps it going so much is it is so much about class, because she's sort of she's middle class, she's in school studying to be an accountant or something. I forget what exactly. And there's this weird sort of like, they trying to marry her off and she's not interested in that.
Yeah.
She wants to like succeed in what she's doing, but she's also kind of discontent.
She actually dreams of being in a village, like...
Right, she's like not interested in the city life, so there's this kind of thing where it's maybe even that sort of like trope of like the rich person thinking the poor life is simpler.
Right.
But it sort of is interacting with that. And then the poor man who's like not understanding that the rich life, well, better in a lot of ways because of money, might also be complicated in a way that his life isn't.
Well, she's trapped. I mean, they're both kind of trapped.
They're both kind of trapped in different circumstances.
That's what makes this so nice. And again, to go back to it, they're both getting to express who they are.
Yeah.
And connect with someone.
Yeah.
In a genuine way. And so that's why, it's not these people like passive aggressively trying to ruin each other's lives like these movies I grew up with. I hate it. And it's just very sweet and slow.
It's
and
very, and again,
tender.
it's really clever writing.
And there's ceiling fans.
And there's ceiling fans in this one too, which is great.
Yeah.
It's that thing where a lot of people take this trope of like you have to lie to someone to make the romance happen, but then there's no reason they're using that trope.
Yeah.
It's just there. Whereas the whole point of this movie, they're both lying to the grandmother, but even though they're lying to the grandmother, they're actually being truthful to each other.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way of writing that trope.
Yeah.
And when you see that in some bland rom-com, it's just like, it's just there because it's funny or embarrassing. I don't know.
And this one has an even more open ending to me. But what's interesting is that
I like the ending of that.
I really liked it. It's basically a flashback to them seeing some stupid rom-com.
Yes.
And she leaves because a rat has crawled over her foot.
Yes, it's the one date we see them go on where the grandma isn't there.
Well, no, they have the chicken later, and she joins him in the shed and sees... Anyway.
Yeah. It's their first date.
Yeah, so they're sitting in the lobby, and she doesn't want to go back in, and he's like, well, we can leave, and she's like, I don't want you to miss it, and he's like, it's about a poor boy who's not good enough for...
Well, no, he says, I've seen it before, and she's like, oh, you have? And he's like, well, not this one, but I've seen other ones.
Yeah, it's a poor boy whose parents aren't, who's in love with this girl whose parents won't approve of him. They're all the same. And
they're all the same.
And it's like, oh, he's talking about all these stupid romantic comedies.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
It's so clever. I'm even curious, I don't know if, Ritesh Batra has written both of these movies, and he is such a clever writer.
Yeah.
Like, it is so impressive. Like, I want to double check, but it's just so clever the way he puts these things together. I'm just so endlessly impressed.
I love how English and, I guess Hindu or Indian, what the language they speak. I like how they go back and forth between them, too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they bounce around, which must just be the way it is.
Well, and I like Nawazuddin Siddiq, who's in both the Lunchbox as a side character and the main character, the male love interest in Photograph.
Yes, and he wrote Photograph. Well, and the first one has Irfan Khan in it, who's a semi-well-known Indian actor, and he was in this other movie, which I thought was called Photograph, but it was called Puzzle, which is actually a different romantic comedy, kind of. I guess it's, or maybe it's a romantic drama. I think it's a romantic comedy, and actually he was good in that too.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway,
these were both very good movies. These are
exactly romantic comedies for people who don't have a sense of humor,
or romantic comedies for people who don't like romantic comedies.
Yeah, one of the two. But I really liked it.
Yeah, me too.